Alright guys, I'm off the water with my Pelican Seek 100 here. I've already shown this in some other videos. It's a entry-level sit-on-top kayak, 12 feet long. It does have some really nice features that you get on a economical entry-level kayak. But one of the things that it did not have was a skeg. What that does to a boat is as you're paddling, the nose is going like this, and every paddle stroke is not necessarily propelling you forward, and it may be correcting from the last time it went like this or this. So that might be fine in a touring kayak with a deep V-shaped hull, because your paddle's always in your hand and every stroke will kind of make you go forward. But with this one, it's very squirrely. When you put your paddle down without a skeg, it'll start to spin. So, you know, if you're trying to fish and stay pointed in one direction, it's very difficult if the kayak is doing this all the time. So by me adding a skeg to this thing, I've greatly increased the maneuverability, or the the fun ability of this boat. A rudder, like you would have on a Pelican Getaway, a Kicker, a lot of their models, the 110 HD2 also has that rudder, and they have different types of cable systems. Some go inside the boat, some are on top of the boat like you would see here on the Getaway. So I happen to have an old rudder system. I believe it came off of a Getaway. So this is the back of the rudder system. They made a footprint on the back of their kayaks that have 5 holes in them. You'll see that on the Getaway, on the Kicker, on the Catch Mode. There's a Catch Power, same thing. You have the same bolt pattern or footprint on the back of many of their models nowadays, so that they can take the same exact part and swap it out. Makes a lot of sense, and it's nice that they have these things for you to buy online nowadays. So if something were to break, or you wanted to add something, like the Catch Power has a transom mount on it, and let's say you wanted a rudder on it, or something else, like the Catch Mode comes with a skeg, but you can put a steerable rudder on it. You can put a transom mount on it and add a motor, just like that. So that's really neat. They all have the same type of rudder like you see here. And again, here's the handle from the Getaway. This is meant to go into the rail. I've taken off some of the components. Here's the end of the cable. 2 of them are supposed to go in through the handle, around a pulley, and then back out. And this is where they terminate at the back. And when you pull on them, they're supposed to yank on the rudder system like that. What happens with anything that you bend and straighten, bend and straighten, bend and straighten over and over and over again is you get fatigue, and eventually the cable can snap and break, which is what happened to this one. Fortunately, the cable is very easy to find. You can get it at Home Depot, Lowe's, you can order it online. I got 100 feet of this stainless steel cable that's 16th inch diameter, I believe, for less than 10 bucks. And it came with little crimp dealies, and we're going to use some of that to fix this rudder system. And then I'm going to try to take that rudder system and cannibalize it and put it on the back of this, because my question is, what's the difference between a skeg and a rudder in the real world when you're out there and you're paddling around? I already know what a skeg does to this vessel, which you power with a paddle. But a lot of these boats, you use your feet. How do you steer when you're just using your feet? All that knows is forward, right? So in order to steer, they have to have a rudder that moves. Whereas on a paddle boat, you use your paddle to steer, kind of, sort of, right? I want to know if there is a big advantage of putting a steerable rudder on the back of a paddle boat. And I'm fixing to find out. Come on, let's get this done. All right. First thing I'm going to do is use my snips here to get rid of the cable. We're going to keep the sheaths that the cables run through. See how that fits in there? So it butts up right here and is kind of clamped down by this thing. Pops into that hole there. Butts up over there. In order to use this in a different application, I'm going to need to tie the sheath down. We'll get to that though. But first, let's figure out how I'm going to mount this on that. Since the final details of how I was going to turn this Skeg into a steerable rudder hadn't quite been figured out, I decided to take this operation inside and put the kayak up on the operating table so I could do my figuring. That would give me the opportunity to take off the little bracket that I had made, which was holding down the rudder in a fixed position. So this rudder on the Seek seems to be pivoting just fine using the hole that the handle used to be in. And it looks very similar to this setup that's on the Catch 110 HD2. So I think I'm gonna try and place the cables like you see here, except mine are gonna be on top. Alright, well, I'm not gonna worry about hooking the cables up to that until I have the tiller handle figured out. This usually fits on a track on a boat. I could add a track here, but then it's going to be too far forward. And if I put one here, well, that's not going to work. So it's kind of got to be on top of this handle here. I think we can do this. I've got this little mount here that should suffice. I just need a drill. Hey, Drill. My name is Gil. Hi, Gil. My name is Jill. Oh, thank God for editing. Oh, shit. You're a fucking weirdo, Mark. Yes, you are. Let's see. How do I attach this to that? Well, I happen to have this accessory. This is another Scotty fine gem that I have in my possession, and I think that I can take this and somehow attach it to the bottom of this handle. I've already taken the screws out of this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little screws. That would allow me to take it apart. So I had something living in there for a while. There's the bottom inside of the mechanism. That's where the cable will go around and exit. And this is going to be the part that's usually the bottom. So let's attach this to that. Before I did that, I had to cut these little pieces of plastic out. Those are going to be spacers. I don't really expect anybody to make this custom installation, so this is not exactly a how-to, but this is how I did it. There's those little spacers on the bottom of the tiller handle assembly. I drilled through the fish finder mount into that assembly, and figuring out where those holes were going to be was a little bit challenging so that they didn't interfere with the internal parts, and yes, I was successful. I think I scraped down the heads of those bolts a little bit too so they didn't interfere when I turned the handles. Anyways, I was eventually able to get this all ready for the cable installation. Alright, very nice. Using that little Scotty mount, I was able to figure where that thing was going to live. That should do it. Alright. Now we just have to add cables. I just recreated the rudder system using the old sheaths. I didn't cut them down or anything. They're actually pretty stout, so that's a good thing. Inside the tiller handle, the top part, there are 3 components. And now I was ready to use that cable that I bought online. 1/16 inch, 7-strand, stainless steel. The question was it going to fit inside the sheath? And it slid in there just fine. Piece of cake. So I put it through one sheath and then I fed it through this hole in the pulley there. There's a set screw there that I didn't tighten down just yet. I made sure I fed it all the way through the other side. And then I was going to leave a couple of feet extra that I would trim off later. Now I was ready to tighten down that set screw in the pulley. This would ensure that the cable moved when I turned the handle, and that the pulley wouldn't just spin by itself. Now I position the cable sheaths within there. They just pop into place and are held down pretty firmly. Now the assembly goes back together, and there's those 5 little screws I mentioned earlier. Now I had a fully assembled tiller handle with cables attached. Now in order to attach those cables to the rudder, there's these little dealies on the back. I don't know where I put the ones that were on the seat, so I had to steal them from this old assembly here. You can see there's a set screw there that holds the cables down at the back side. They're simply attached with one bolt. If you have a boat with a rudder assembly like this, you've already done this.
It goes through there, and then you're going to be held down there using these.
These little dealies hold the cable sheaths in place. You see there's a big opening there and a small opening there. They slide onto the cable sheath, and then the clamp goes over it. You screw that down, and now the cable sheath won't move, but the cable can move freely. Then you have to make sure your tiller handle is facing forward and the rudder is straight, and then you tighten the set screw on those little dealies on the back. Again, if you have a boat like this, you've probably done this the day you bought your boat. Now the last thing to do that you wouldn't have to do when you first bought your boat is to add these little things to the ends of the cables to keep them from fraying. Since those cables are made up of 7 individual strands, they might come apart if you didn't do this. Plus they're pretty sharp after you cut them. I left a couple extra inches and then just used channel locks to crimp these things down that came with the cable. And then you bend it over and they're held in place on the inside of those little dealies, and there you go. You have a fully operational rudder system. I just put these screws back in and then reattached the hatch that I had made. I was going to put the accessories back on, like these pouches. I would stuff my PFD underneath there, add a cooler and some other accessories, and the next thing you know, I'd be ready for testing on the water. I certainly picked a beautiful day to do this. Perfectly flat, calm conditions, and I was able to see fish out in the distance. There's one right there moving from right to left. I just turned the tiller handle so that I'd be facing him.
Over here now. Alright, well, we're on the water testing our new steerable rudder instead of just having a Skeg here on this boat. And you just saw I spied a fish and it swam past me, and instead of having to go like fish behind me, all I did was move the rudder and it turned the boat in the direction that I wanted to fish. It's proving itself to be extremely useful sometimes. I'm finding that it's sometimes in the way for paddling, so I have to kind of go over it, but that's just because I designed it to be kind of proud here. I probably would have had it closer to the gunnel of the boat if this handle weren't on this boat, but I do like the handle because it supports my arm like an armrest does, and then laying my hand on the rudder is like sitting in a recliner, and it feels extremely comfortable, very easy to turn, and I'm not feeling a lot of resistance back there, and yet it's doing its job turning me whenever I want to face a certain direction. Even when I'm barely moving, if I turn, and yeah, I got the cables backwards. What's it with me and backward steering? I don't get it, but that'll be an easy enough fix. At some point I'll just have to cross the lines, but yeah, I just paddled once and I'm still turning. There's just enough water going past the rudder for that to be effective. That's super cool. In case you're noticing, this rod that's here, that's just an old fishing pole. It's got a camera mount on the top of it. I use that for my third-person shots, so I can stick that in the ground and paddle past it. That's not part of the steering system that you're seeing there. Ooh, I hear snook hiding in those trees, chasing bait. This is an amazing place. It's hard to make videos about skegs and rudders when you have distractions like that. But in summary, I would say that this steerable rudder is still beneficial on a paddle craft. I wish there was a little bit more resistance, because while I am paddling, my hand is not on the rudder, obviously, and it'll move by itself. And it's still okay because although it still allows a little side-to-side action, the second I stop paddling, the rudder catches and the boat just goes straight, which is so much better than it continuing to turn whatever direction I happen to be paddling in when I stopped digging the water with the paddle. So yes, it does work. And there's one last thing that I want to try before I call it today, and that is to disconnect it from here and raise the tiller handle up, because there have been many times in the past where I'm standing and I'm fishing and I have to reach down to the tiller handle to adjust the direction that I'm cruising. I think with this setup it'll be really easy to disconnect the steering and raise it up so that I don't have to bend down to get it. So not sure how well that's going to work, but let's give it a try, shall we?
Before I did that though, I removed my cup holder. I had added a Scotty mount right there at the base of the cup holder. That it not just held the cup holder, but this bazooka tube here, or whatever you call it, so I wouldn't have to reach back to get my fishing pole.
And this, raise this up. You know, I love all my Scotty accessories. I've got a whole bunch of them, and I use them all the time. I recommend them to all my friends. In case you're looking for something to put on your kayak, I would suggest using them. And here you see I got a whole bunch linked together. And anyways, I'll leave a link in the description for you guys if you're trying to find where to get something just like this. There you go. That's the way. I realize this is kind of jerky, but you know, sometimes I feel a little bit jerky. What can I tell you? Sometimes it's utter failure. Sometimes it actually works out pretty good.
Well, the test here was going to be whether I could stand and move this thing, and immediately I realized, well, I still have to bend down to put the paddle down. But let's say I was just cruising along with a fishing pole, then yes, I was able to turn the boat and then stop it from a standing position, which was okay, but
maybe not as useful in the standing position as I thought it would be. Everything's kind of wobbling around and it's pretty flat out here.
This would definitely be more effective if the boat were a little bigger and more stable. This is a small kayak, you know. And things could get ugly if I was distracted, let's say, by a fish or something.
Ooh, just caught a fish out there. Holy shit, I almost barrel rolled it.
Yeah, I think I was ready to abandon this project. Maybe having the tiller handle up high is not the best idea.
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep this in the lower position for now. Who knows, maybe at some point in the future I can add a motor to this so that all I got to do is sit back and steer. Maybe I can have a controller over here on the right side. Maybe that little water snake that I recently purchased for $100. Yeah, I think that would be one heck of a vessel with that improvement, especially now that I have a steerable rudder. So thank you guys for coming along on this. You don't have to subscribe, you don't have to like, you don't have to do anything. Just go out on the water, have fun, and enjoy what's out there. If you're close to the water, it's like right there. Go get it. See you next time.